So the first thing, now that we have the strings at tension or open skip tension, we're going to set the knot straight edge. 10/1000ths of an inch. Okay. Old school, we used to set points with these. Now you can get these at Harbor Freight because we use them for setting the relief in our neck.
And that's what this is.
And that's what we're doing now is neck relief. We flattened our neck first. We've added string tension, so we're actually pulling on the headstock. And so we're going to have a little bit of relief naturally just because of the string tension. We might have to induce additional string tension or additional tension with the truss rod to get it 10/1000ths relief.
And I want to keep adding, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go for it.
This is a guide. It works very, very well. So I just want to keep encouraging you. This is a great guide. Have your laptop, iPad, or this out there.
Yep.
Provide this for your students, because this is a step-by-step guide.
And we updated it with writing listy, lefty, droppy. 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. So 8 or 9 10/1000ths should slide through with minimal resistance.
Why 8 or 9?
Why 8 or 9? What do you think?
They're in the middle. It's the middle of the bow.
Yeah, but the middle of the neck would be.
Middle of the
there
bow.
would probably be, would be somewhere else.
Well, middle of the neck is about 9. Okay.
There were the strings with them?
No. Middle. It's the actual neck.
Middle of the scale.
It's not the scale length. It's not the middle of the scale length. It's the middle of the neck. The physical neck itself.
And that truss rod goes from about, what, here to...
About here.
About there. So that's the middle. What you're really measuring
Is
yeah,
that
exactly.
right? And so somewhere around 8 or 9, I want to slide this in, and I want it to slide, and it's close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real close. So I have a little bit. I need to get the truss rod wrench. So a truss rod wrench. Thank you, sir. And I need to move to the left. Now this is going to be a little bit of a challenge because the string tree is really close to the entrance of the truss rod. So I actually need to loosen the strings here.
That measurement was between the gauge
A-
of the string or the gauge of the straight edge?
The straight edge is actually laying on the fretboard.
So you were looking at
10,000.
And so we're doing 10/1000ths between.
nothing to do with the strings at this point.
No.
Okay.
Now it could.
Other than you need string tension.
Tension.
Other than you need string
You
tension.
never do this with the strings not on. And again, what you're doing is it's helping the strings not buzz. And it's also a player preference. You guys with acoustic guitars, and I heard some buzzing or something like that, I, honest to goodness, go home and look at that guitar, and you very well may see the neck's bowing like this, You put some neck relief on it, plays better, and it doesn't buzz.
So I just tightened, because this truss rod wasn't tight at all, which means he had no tension on the truss rod, and we had that much relief. So now I'm going to go back and I just put a little bit of tension on it, and this thing just slides right under. That's your goal. About 10/1000ths. 10 to 12/1000ths is pretty much standard. Now what happens if you don't have one of these? Well, a manila file folder is 11/1000ths thick. And the way you use that is you actually cut the strips, set that down and pull. And if it's moving the not straight edge, then you know it's still too high. But a manila file folder is 11/1000ths. So we have neck relief. Once we have neck relief complete, we then need to start working on what is known as string height. String height gauge is right here, thank you. So string height. We measure string height in 2 locations. Go ahead and remove the wrench. Two locations for string height. I personally set the front string height first because that influences the rear string height. So the front string height that I set is at the 21st fret, which is right in here. Now, this is something that you have to get down and look perpendicular, because we can't just guess at this. Well, we can, but it wouldn't be playable. We want to get 80/1000ths of an inch from the bottom of the string to the top of the fret. 80/1000ths of an inch. Now, could we set this for 80/1000ths and do the same thing? Absolutely. Absolutely. We could use a feeler gauge. This gauge and the plastic ones have marks on it. We lasered the marks. This one is actually screen printed. But I've got to get down there and look and see what the height is.
Again, bottom of the string to the measuring line.
So I'm looking to see which line I can see under the string. That's what I'm looking for. Oh my gosh, it looks pretty accurate. It's like Mike set this thing up already. I got 70 thousandths. I can barely see the 80 thousandths line. I would encourage everybody to come over here and check this out.
And you do that with every string.
What is the measurement you're looking for there?
80 thousandths. I want to see that 80 thousandths line under the string, because that tells me that I've got that gap.
And there's a different one for each string though, right?
No,
Those are all gonna be 80 thousandths?
they're all 80 thousandths at this
Oh,
fret.
Oh, at that front though.
Yeah, so ideally, if you could look down, all you would see is the bottom of all those strings at 80 thousandths.
Well, kind of. Remember, we radiused.
Yeah. Well, we haven't
Oh,
yet.
yeah, okay.
We've radiused the fretboard.
Yeah.
So as I check each string, I'm going to be going
They
and
will go around
crowning
like that. Okay.
around the fretboard. Okay. So that little Allen wrench that was in the bridge bag that should still be in your box is what fits into the Allen sockets on each saddle. That allows you to raise or lower the string height. The key is, though, if you're going to touch the string, you have to loosen it. If not, you will strip these out and it's game over. Okay. So if I do any adjustments, I have to make sure that the string is loose before I do anything. All right. Now, I've done it where I've tilted the guitar up so I can see the angle and so forth, just to keep it simple here. So this one I can see the 90 thousandths line. That means I need to bring it down. General rule of thumb, I usually preset these set screws flush with the saddle, just so I know where I'm starting from. So I can see the 90 thousandths, which means I need to loosen the string, get it kind of loose, and I've got to back the set screw out because I need to lower.
As you back the set screw out, the set screw comes up, but the saddle goes down.
Yeah. Then I got to tighten the string back to close to tension, because what are we doing when we put the tension on it? We straighten the string. If not, it's a big bow.
And it's not so important that it's in tune right now when you're doing this. It doesn't have to be
That is
ringing
correct.
at E.
Tuning is not
The reason we
critical.
had you bring it up to tune is just for the tension.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to make sure the
But
string.
not when you're going through a setup, huh?
No.
It's just enough to you have good tension across
Yeah.
the area. Okay.
That's in the ballpark of 80 hertz.
Yeah.
It's actually a little high. It's a little tight. All right. We are at.
I'd give you my glasses, but they seem to be a popular item here this week.
That's okay. We're a little low. I actually have to raise it a little bit.
He would need them, I know. Just giving you a hard time there.
Okay.
You guys from the south, we gotta give you a hard time. You can take it.
So this is where some time happens.
Yeah.
You know,
In the guide, it looks like the string at first fret comes first. Is it interchangeable?
it is. Well, here's the reason why I do this one first. Because if I set this at 80, now I can come down here and check for 20. If I lower this and then I raise this, then we could run into a problem where I've already set this
You can't
one.
redo that.
I can't redo this because if I'm going to lower this string, I'm actually going to grind or use the files and
Yeah.
take material out of the nut.
Yeah.
So I want to set this first and then this. So down here at fret number 1, it's 20 thousandths. And I'm at 40 thousandths. Almost 50. So what that means is that the fabricator of this guitar sanded the fretboard significantly and brought the fretboard down a bit because the nut is setting higher. Now, the easiest way is to actually take the nut out, sand the bottom of the nut. I know I told you not to do that initially because we didn't want to touch it until we knew exactly. Trying to cut 20 thousandths out of each string, that's going to be too much. So I will actually sand the bottom of the nut, slide the nut back in, get it a little bit closer, then I will file each individual nut slot.
If you have to, right?
Well,
Sometimes-
actually, I do every nut slot regardless, and here's the reason why. I'm going to loosen it, and I'll show you why.
Oh, the nut slot or the nut?
The slot of the nut.
Slot.
Well, and the back, I mean, he's gonna do both.
I'm going to do a back cut on the nut. So these are gauged files for the nut. So it happens to be 36 and 42. Okay. Adventurous students will put arrows on which one is which. You can actually see that this is the 42.
These 3 files, what, $80?
$75, $25 each for each file.
Yeah,
Do
these
not
are-
buy the Chinese knockoffs. Do not buy.
But I will say one thing about the Chinese knockoff, and I bought some Chinese, is it fills in the gaps of those. These
Oh,
are
no,
mine, but
they
this
make-
fills in the gaps of those.
They make Chinese knockoffs that look like this.
Oh, no,
Rust.
this is actually, these are pretty good, actually.
You don't want that rust.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy the Chinese knockoffs because they do rust. These are Japanese files. Difference in the ferrous of the metals.
You know, another thing, something I did at the school, I took a piece of that string, and I took a piece of maple about 3/8 of an inch thick, super glued it to that piece of maple. So now I had that exact string, that exact diameter, and it was rough enough that that could actually act as a file. It won't do it for the unwound ones.
Right, for the steel
but
strings with
You
it.
get what I'm saying? Yeah. That was, I really,
So I'm going to take the file.
I did, on that one.
I'm not pushing down, but what I am going to do is I am going to back cut this. I am going to push down here. Why? Because I want the front of the nut to be where the string stops buzzing, or where the string stops vibrating. So if you have a sitar string, none of these are sitar strings, but if you have a sitar string, hear the buzz? Twang.
It's vibrating in the nut.
It's vibrating in the nut. So if it does that and you do this, that's a nut buzz. The way to eliminate the nut buzz is to
Shave them.
exactly. But back cut it first and then shave it down. Because what's happening is the string is vibrating throughout the whole length, and you only want the front side where it vibrates. Now, if it continues after it's back cut, then you actually get some pencil graphite. Put a little pencil graphite in there to lubricate the string nut.
And it is
12
clear,
year
it's
olds.
clear that every one of these guitars is gonna be different. I'm sitting here looking at Tyler's guitar, and I can see the way that nut is laying there. It's gonna absolutely be different than this guitar.
Right.
I can see by looking at it, it's gonna be different.
Yeah.
So the builder on this one leaned heavier on the headstock when they sanded and sanded that nut slot down because the nut is much taller here. We don't want to change the depth of that nut slot. What we want to do is change the height of the nut and bring that.
So when you measure that across, like Tom showed you, you measure every string across the first fret. And when you see that they're all off, you're okay by touching the bottom off, right? Like he was telling you. And do this one first for string height here, and then do that one. Even though on the handout, it has you going to this one first, do this one first, and then do that one.
I just find it easier.
No, I think your point's well made. You know, do your adjustment here.
Is there a
That-
tool you
that's
can
gonna
put in there to
influence
lift them all
this.
up at once and slide it
So
all
do that
up?
one first.
Because you have to untension it.
Right. Like if you, yeah. That way you just lift all the strings up and then slide
it'll
everything
slide
up.
out.
What's the 36 and 42 related to?
All my guitars sound like
So this is the advantage to not fit gluing down the nut also,
Absolutely.
huh?
Yeah.
You can take it out
Not
and make
until,
these
yeah,
adjustments.
exactly. And there's no reason to literally glue the nut down.
Mhm.
There really isn't. The strings are going to hold it in place.
Yeah.
So
there's
the
no
reason why they
help you. How deep to go.
super glue the nut down typically in a manufacturing
You
environment
go down.
is
So
because of
it's-
shipping.
Cut it down so it's
Oh,
deeper.
okay.
That's good.
Yes.
Well, they'll ship it with
I didn't know it was
strings
like,
typically.
I was always told to
They'll ship
leave
it under
slack
some
when you first
tension.
put new strings because they
But
snap
it may not be
loose
enough to
on.
hold the nut.
Okay.
So I'll actually, you want to take
So just-
this on a
just cut it
flat
from-
surface and just sand this.
Flush.
Yeah.
I would press equally down and sand.
Would it be advantageous to work both E's and then decide if you needed to sand down like more than one side than the other, or?
Typically, this is already tapered.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that nut is tapered to that concept. So if
Okay.
we sand the bottom, we'll keep the top.
Yeah, okay, we keep it all even.
We keep it all even. Good point though, because if that was the case, then we'd have to wonder if the neck is twisted.
Okay.
If it's starting to turn into a helix, which has happened.
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay, it's wood. We don't know what the, we've glued it, we've machined it. These things were born a month and a half ago. You don't know exactly what stresses the wood is going to react to. We've now added a truss rod, we've tensioned it, and all that. So yeah, now we just sand the nut, slide it back in, get the string height close, and go from there. Like I would sand this to about 25 thousandths and leave it at that.
So this is just a lot of back and forth.
Yeah,
going
this is
on.
iterative.
Yeah.
Once we have all this set up, then we'll talk about intonation, which is the last step, which may
We
happen
won't do that.
tomorrow.
Yeah, we won't do that.
We'll do that in the morning.
Let's just get string height set up, and we're gonna crack out of here at what, 5?